a biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, it's Wednesday and we like to catch up on all the breaking news out of Israel and the Middle East, and so much happening there at the moment. Mandy, Worby, tell us what is going on at the moment.
There's so much, Andrew, I can't keep up with it, so much to share. But I do want to start with just a little bit of update on the hostages that were discovered. The 6 hostages that were murdered. Well, what the IDF have found is that they were literally minutes from rescuing them alive, but Hamas executed them, bullet to the back of the head, literally minutes before the IDF were able to rescuing. But the IDF have actually gone into the shaft and tunnel where they were kept and held hostage. The shaft is it's 20 metres down, so it's very, very deep, and then this long tunnel with a steel blast door at the end. The tunnel itself was a dirt floor, probably 2 to 3 feet wide, and not tall enough, not high enough for adults to stand up in. Literally, you'd have to be on your knees to be able to be upright and not have your head just a couple of inches from the roof. Absolutely terrible. No ventilation, no toilets, no shower facilities, no proper bedding, nothing. And that is where the hostages were kept.
So they were going to be rescued and they were just executed at the last moment.
Yes, they were within minutes. So absolutely deplorable. And as you can imagine, the families of those hostages are devastated. They're absolutely devastated. They've spent 3/4 of a year lobbying to try to get their loved ones back. And Hamas, well, they're just evil. They don't care. They do not care. And my understanding is that Yahya Sinwar, now the new head of Hamas, has said if the IDF get anywhere near the hostages, just kill them. So that's what the instructions have been. All war crimes, Andrew.
Yeah.
All war crimes. Now, some of the families are blaming Bibi Netanyahu. They're basically saying that he's abandoned the hostages because of the failed ceasefire deals, and that he is actually responsible for the buildings of the tunnels, because in wars past with Gaza that Hamas started, Israel would go in, she would begin to gain ground, and the whole world would come crashing down on Israel and say, get out, get out, get out, pull back, you've gone too far, too much. Then Hamas regroups, digs in deeper, gets more weapons, and all the materials that Israel is forced to send in to build the houses that were damaged in the war, Hamas basically used to build a literally like Swiss cheese network of tunnels underground, the whole of Gaza. And so Bibi's getting blamed for that. But then there are other family members who are saying, no, the blame has to be laid at Hamas' feet. They're the ones who started the war, they're the ones who murdered their people, and they're the ones who have held them in deplorable conditions and executed them. But the entrance was actually in a civilian home, in a child's bedroom. The entrance was in a child's bedroom with pictures of Mickey Mouse and Snow White on the walls. Yeah. So civilian participation there.
It's unbelievable. And what about Israel's northern border and Hezbollah's daily attacks?
Oh, well, here's the thing. Yes, the war is continuing in Gaza, but Israel has got control of Gaza for the most part. It's still intense, it's still dangerous, the war's still going, but there is now transfer of focus to Israel's north. There are tens of thousands of Israeli refugees in their own country driven out of their homes in the north because of daily Hezbollah attacks. Well over 700 rockets since October 8. Israel wasn't at war with Lebanon, but Hezbollah got into the act straight away. And so the focus is that they are going to have to go in because Hezbollah has lost, the deterrent has lost. It's gone. They're not afraid anymore. So therefore, war is absolutely imminent. But here's the thing. A recent American senior leader from the administration went to Israel and said, there's going to be catastrophic and unforeseen consequences if you go in and make war with Hezbollah. Well, what's she supposed to do? Just sit there and let them continue to rain rocket fire? There's damaged houses, cars, businesses, loss of life, and the northern half of Israel has just been decimated by bushfires because of it. What's she supposed to do? Nothing? So, Israel has no alternative. She's going to have to do something. But then you've got, the current administration saying that they're going to put sanctions on Iran now, which is kind of crazy because under the Obama and Biden administrations, they lifted all the sanctions, made a deal with Iran, which allowed them to proliferate their nuclear aspirations, which they have now barred the International Atomic Agency from going in to inspect. Surprise, surprise. And they handed over literally billions of dollars in American cash.
Cash, yeah.
Which the Iranians have then since then used to fund terror around the world.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. So now they want to put sanctions on. But they're also trying to tell Israel that they will need to go easy with Hezbollah. And actually, why don't you give Hezbollah some land in the north? Now, you kind of have to understand have you heard of this election that might be coming up in November? So this administration, all at Israel's expense and to Israel's detriment, is trying to appease some in America and say, okay, they're going to get tough with Iran, so I'll vote for them. But they're also getting tough with Israel, and they're favouring Hezbollah, so I'll vote for them. So this is about an election that's coming up. Israel, of course, is the one who's got its head on the chopping block, so it's very concerning.
Yeah, and what else is going on that we need to know about, Mandy?
Well, I don't know if this is going to be a shock to you or not, but a United Nations convoy filled with humanitarian aid that was heading into Gaza was actually hiding and transporting Hamas terrorists. The convoy was checked by the IDF. The terrorists were discovered. They were arrested, and not sure what happened to the convoy, but if anybody had even a sliver of hope that the United Nations was not pro-terrorist and Israel-hating, the group of people, that's gone now.
Yep.
A United Nations convoy was smuggling Hamas terrorists into Gaza. So that's highly problematic. You may or may not have heard just 2 days ago, a Jordanian truck driver with a gun in his cabin came to the Allenby border crossing. I've been through this crossing myself between Israel and Jordan. He got out of his truck and murdered 3 border control workers there until security shot him. Now, the borders, I believe all 3 of them are closed, and the IDF is finding more and more weaponry being smuggled all the way from Iran through the border with Jordan into Judea and Samaria, into the Palestinian-controlled territories where Hamas and Islamic Jihad are building their own bases, copying Hamas. So Israel is having to have incursions into there. The world doesn't like it, but Israel is not going to tolerate terrorists literally side by side with their communities inside their own borders. And the Jordanian people, when this attack happened, sadly, dancing in the streets, handing out sweets and bottles of water, setting off fireworks in celebration. And the Jordanian Secretary General of the Jordanian Islamic Action Front Party, his name is Murad al-Adaleh, and he said this, quote, "The heroic operation carried out by the martyr Maher al-Jazi expresses the conscience of the Jordanian people, confirming their support for the resistance." And I won't go on with that because it's a bit of a long quote, but he's all for it. They're all very happy. But what's crazy about this attitude is it's like they're in favour of terrorism, attack, murder, because they're saying that Israel is guilty of committing an extermination. But it was Hamas that committed an extermination against the Jewish people on October 7. They started the war. They were relentlessly bombing Israel, butchering, slaughtering. Israel retaliates, and then suddenly Hamas become the victims.
Yep.
It's a complete reversal of absolute facts. It's a horrible ideology that drives this mindset.
Absolutely. And anything else on your mind at the moment?
Well, I woke up early this morning and I realised that today is the 23rd anniversary of September 11. I remember where I was on September 11 in 2001. I bet you can remember where you were. Everybody can remember that was alive and old enough to remember 23 years ago what was happening in their lives, where they were, when Islamic radical terrorists tried to destroy New York, bring down America to its knees. We were all ignorant of the ideology before 9/11. We're not now. We had to get up to speed and educated pretty quickly. And this ideology is spreading all throughout the world at the moment, Andrew. We're watching it happen in real time. We're scratching our heads going, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? But this was never an ambiguous thing for Israel. They've been dealing with this ideology for hundreds of years. And so I would ask everybody today just to remember the horror of 9/11 and understand that on a per capita basis, what Israel experienced on October 7 was the same as 9/11, except that per capita, Israel suffered more loss of life, had many of their people taken hostage, over 100 still being held in deplorable conditions. And in that regard, it far exceeds what America experienced on 9/11. We forget about that. We think, it was only 1,100 people. A few houses burned. No. It was far worse than 9/11 was for America. And people, the news cycle has moved on, Andrew. Mm-hmm. People forget what started this war and who started this war and why they started this war. And we cannot forget. We cannot forget. So I would ask our family around the country who love God, who love his people, who treasure his word, to pray. Pray for Israel. Pray for people, not because they're perfect, but because God has chosen them. Just because he said he loved them, we owe them a lot. Let's pray for them and ask that God would be their strong tower, their refuge, their safe place, their fortress, and fight for them.
Yeah, well said, Mandy. And as always, very informative and insightful. And I want to thank you again for sharing this insight with us today on 2020.
My pleasure.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.